Or what's the deal with your boy Love One to Hate One in the building with your boy Gil, and we back at y'all with another radio call. You guys already know we finna cook. I want to say good fight yesterday, but was it really a good fight yesterday? I don't know, man. Shit, I say, it was well, Keith Thurman did try. I'll give him that. But the first question I want to ask you and me before we even talk about the fight, Gil, was it an early stoppage? Now let me tell you this, okay? Well, let me just get mine real quick, okay? That's the question of the day. That's gonna be my first video of the day. Keith Thurman came out after the post fight and he said, it was an early stoppage, and I do have some thoughts about that. And Gil, I want to know your thoughts about that too. Now let me tell you guys this. My opinion when it comes down to Keith Thurman saying it was an early stoppage, I'm not gonna even lie to you guys. When I'm watching the fight, I'm like, my thing is, it's like the whole situation when I watched Diego Corrales stop Castillo, right? My thing is with the referee, I understand Keith Thurman was looking terrible, just like Castillo was looking terrible. But my whole thing is, I would rather see a fighter fall before a referee just stop the fight. At least let the fighter fall. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not mad at the referee for the stoppage because Keith Thurman wasn't doing anything, man. And it was too many unanswered punches. But I understand why Keith Thurman is mad. Maybe he thought Fundora would have got tired. Maybe he thought, I don't know if you've seen the post-fight video of Keith Thurman, but he was saying, I was just getting started, I was going to catch him. And I feel kind of bad in a sense because we've seen fighters come back from worse than that. Look at fucking Chico Corrales, who actually got dropped. Face looking bloody, puffy, eyes, everything, who got actually dropped 3 times. That's what I'm going to say. Who actually got dropped 3 times in that fight, versus Castillo. And then he got up and got the stoppage. So my point is, we've seen fighters come back from worse. And my other point is, well, not really another point, but I just feel like, the referee should let the fighter fall. But like I said, I'm not mad at the referee. Too many unanswered punches from Keith Thurman, and it looked bad for Keith Thurman. But before we talk about the actual fight, Gil, I want you to give me your thoughts, on the early stoppage that Keith Thurman is proclaiming.
I don't think it was, because you could hear Thomas Taylor, that's who the referee was. He told him, he goes, "You got to show me something, Keith," and he didn't respond. He let it keep going. He was covering up, but he wasn't really throwing anything when they stopped it. So I understand it. And then you look at his face, how puffy it ended up, how beat up it looked. You kind of have to understand why the referee did it. I understand what he's trying to say, but the way it looked, he wasn't going to do any better.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. But to be fair, Gil, we've seen fighters come back from worse than that, man. And this is why I feel like you should at least let the fighter hit the canvas, Once the fight hit the canvas, like, hey, hey, he dropped you a couple times, Thurman, what the fuck else do you want? But when the fighters, that's why I say I get Keith Thurman, and I hate to be on the fucking on the fence, but I kind of get both sides here. I kind of understand the referee side because, like you said, he said, "Show me something, Thurman." Thurman wasn't showing the shit, you guys. It was one point when fucking Fundora landed like 10 fucking punches, and Keith Thurman was just running around, and Keith Thurman was looking hurt, And another thing is too, he was bloody as fuck. So I get both sides. But like I said before, Gil, we have seen, we've been watching boxing for a long time. We've seen fighters come back from way worse than that. Not saying Keith Thurman was going to do that, because he wasn't, in my opinion. But I'm just saying we've seen fighters come back from worse. What you gonna say?
Can I say something? The only thing I gotta say to that, bro, is we're coming off a week before where a fighter was put in a coma after her knockout, right? So you gotta remember that, because the referee, the referees could be kind of skittish and be like, I really have to protect these fighters because they could get put in a coma. So you gotta take that into consideration also.
Good point. You're coming off of, that's true. I forgot about that too. I'm glad you brought that up. We could talk about that in another topic, but so maybe it's some emotions going on with the ref and all that shit. So like I said, I can see it from either way, man. Like I said, I at least want to see the fighter fall. Like Keith Thurman said, I didn't even fall. I at least want to see a fighter fall, number one. And number two, I do feel like I said, we've seen fighters come back from worse, and Keith Thurman does have, power. But then again, I can see from the referee too. It's like, Keith Thurman, you wasn't showing me shit. Keith Thurman wasn't winning, not fuck winning a round. He wasn't even winning a second of a round. So I understand kind of both sides, of the spectrum. But I'm not mad at the referee for stopping the fight. But let's get to the actual fight, man. Go ahead.
Let me say one more thing. I got a better example for you where it could be the reverse. On the other two fights, where they called the fights, I believe those two fights were called too early. Because the referee is somebody that isn't very well known. Yeah. And it looked like he got kind of skittish in those other two fights. And it was the same referee. So that one could be a better argument for the early stoppage. But in the Thurman fight, I don't think it was. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm not mad at it, but I understand Keith Thurman, what he's talking about. Like I said, we've seen fighters come back from worse, but man, Keith Thurman, it was looking ugly for you, man. Speaking of looking ugly for you, man, look, what I saw in that fight, number one, it's sad. It is very sad because number one, Keith Thurman was doing too much talking, and I'm kind of glad that happened yesterday because this lets you guys know, a lot of people think it's just about winning. Yes, winning is the main thing, but if you come out in a fight and you lose, but you give your all and you do some things good, that does raise your stock. Like if Keith Thurman, let's say he would have lost yesterday, but he would have got a knockdown on Fundora, maybe hurt Fundora a couple times, maybe outboxed him a few rounds, it wouldn't be that bad. But he beat you in every department. He outboxed you. He hurt you multiple times during the fight. And I was so wrong. And Gil, you called it. Good prediction, by the way. I got to give my boy Gil some props because he called it. He outboxed from the outside. And, you broke it down perfectly. Outboxed him, smartly, stayed on the outside. And one thing I respect the most about fucking Fundora, he didn't, even when he hurt Keith Thurman, he didn't get full ahead of himself and just fight on the inside. I liked how he mixed it up. So
he was being smart.
He was being very smart. Fundora's
Dad told him, keep doing what you're doing because you're hurting them. So just keep doing it.
Man, was he doing that? And Fundora, I ain't gonna even lie, man. Fundora has gotten way better, man. So much better, man. So Fundora's a scary fighter, man. I got to say it. At first, I was like, if somebody crack him, it's over. And I still kind of feel that way. I feel he can be hurt, but he's not just going in there throwing punches. But it is what it is. Shouts out to Sebastian Fundora, man, for being the first person to stop Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman, on the other hand, man, he's talking about he'll be back strong. There are some fights out there for Keith Thurman. My whole thing is the only way Keith Thurman could kind of get his mojo back, he would have to get a big win, man, over a good name. Okay, that's the only way. Other than that, Keith Thurman, it's no time to really play, getting there with tune-ups and shit. But that's my thoughts on the fight. I thought it was a good fight while it lasted. What's your thoughts on it, Gil?
I think Keith Thurman could do well with other fighters that aren't that big, that have that wingspan. I think it was just he couldn't get on the inside. He waited too long. He was trying to box early and get on the inside with little counters here and there. I think he waited too long, and that's why Sebastian was able to figure out what he was going to do and get confidence. Once he got that confidence that he could hurt him, almost knock him down in the second round, I think his confidence grew to the point where he goes, I could take him out anytime I want. You know what I mean? So I think that's why when you take on Sebastian, you got to take it to him right early.
Yeah, okay, let me ask you this. And be honest, Gil, okay, be honest. Did you see the fight? Were you surprised how the fight went? Like, did you see?
No, exactly how it happened, bro.
Yeah,
is exactly how I pictured it in my mind. Because
with the stoppage too.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Because he was catching him at the end of his punches. He was using his length to keep him off of him. He was using combinations, and he was able to do what he wanted, get him tired, and it was over.
Okay. Well, shit, that's fair play. What do you think?
Because you had told me that he had good legs to get on the inside, but once he gets tired, your legs go, bro. And especially when Keith Thurman's 37 years old, bro. So I was like, he might have had good legs a couple years ago, but he's been out of the game for a while, so I don't know.
And he's an old 37, man. Keith Thurman. See, a lot of people want to say, Keith Thurman haven't been in a lot of wars, but that's not the only way to be an old 30-year-old fighter. Well, 35 and beyond. That's what I'm saying. When you're Canelo age and beyond, we kind of start asking ourselves, are you a young age like Canelo? And to me, Canelo's in the middle. Okay, I feel like Keith Thurman with the injuries and shit, man, he's an old 37. It kind of showed yesterday, man. Keith Thurman, and putting on extra weight. You're at 154 now. You're no longer at 147 and 140 like you used to be. So, yeah.
It starts taking effect sooner. So to me, it's like he has to figure out if he really wants to do this. He's 37 years old, and it kind of looked really bad yesterday.
It looked bad.
So it might be time to start thinking about retirement. But if he wants to give it another...
He said it yesterday, Gil. He said, I'm going to be back strong, and I'm going for the titles. And you know what? It's crazy because, like I said, Keith Thurman, a lot of his marketability is from him talking. So let me ask you this in all honesty, Gil. Do you think Thurman was trying to pump himself up when he was talking that shit, or you felt like he genuinely believed that?
That's the way I looked at it. I thought he was trying to pump himself up to go through with the test that he had to go through, because he was talking as much as he did with Pacquiao. And I'm like, I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
So,
but at least with Pacquiao, don't get me wrong, Pacquiao won the fight, but at least with Pacquiao, it's like he showed a good effort, won some rounds, and I thought he did good versus Pacquiao. Just Pacquiao beat his ass, don't get me wrong though, but I thought, he got a little moral victory in that fight. Yesterday it was just like, oh shit. But
it's just the length and the amount of punches that Sebastian threw, it caused an effect. And you could see it. So that's why, to me, when I look at Sebastian, I kind of think of Tommy Hearns. I'm not saying he's as good as Tommy Hearns. I'm just saying with the length and the ability that he seems to be getting, I think of Tommy Hearns when I think of Sebastian Fundora.
Well, that length.
Yeah, it's the length that makes it more difficult. So with him going forward, he has to work on that defense to shore it up. Once he does that, he could be a killer at that weight.
Right.